Hello, fifth grade. This is Mrs. Phelps. I am here to talk you through your Sort 31 words. Obviously, when we are in these Greek and Latin root words like we are, it is pretty obvious which category you're sorting into. You really don't need help with that. You can really look at most of the words and identify which one it goes into. However, the piece of it that we're going to go into today is the meanings of the words and how they're related to the root word meanings. So, this definition sheet came home in your doc folder. You do not have to use it. However, it is worth 1 bonus point on your quiz on Friday if you fill it out along with me here and turn it in on Friday. Study it throughout the week and then turn it in. Okay, so you should have already cut out your words on page 121. Use those to sort along with me as we're talking. Feel free to pause the video if you do choose to write down the definitions of the words as you're going through. I'm going to keep the words kind of short and sweet, but that way it makes sense. We have 3 major root words that we're talking about today. We have O-N-Y-M or onym, which means name. We have gen, which means born or family or beginning, something related to that. And then we have mort, which means death. So I'm going to kind of go through each of them, talk about what each of the words mean, and then kind of go from there. All right, so let's get started. Okay, the first one we're going to do is this onym, the name. And I did go ahead and pull this one, which was one of the the header words, which I think is important. So we have this word antonym, and you as 5th graders pretty much know what that means. That should be pretty similar to you, but it means an opposite, like in name, or really truly what we think about as meaning, right? So we think about happy, we think about sad, we think about sunny, we think about rainy, right? The opposites, right? So the meaning of them is the opposite of what they are. Okay, we have these words. Some of these words you're going to look at and go, Mrs. Phelps, what in the world? I've never even heard that word before in my life. And at the end, I'm going to talk about which words would be ones I would really think about as you're reviewing this week for your quiz to really study. This one is patronymic. And what that means is it's a name that came from like a father or an ancestor. So I'll use Mr. Phelps as an example. Mr. Phelps, his first name is Martin. Every firstborn male in his family has been Martin and then a J name. Okay, so Mr. Phelps is actually Martin Jordan. He goes by Jordan, but Martin would be a patronymic name, right? It's something that's passed down from father's side. It's something that is gone. So again, you see that onym, which means the name, right? So patronymic is the word. We have the word eponym, which means something that's named after the person who founded it. So for example, Hoover Dam was named after a person named Hoover who discovered it. Disney World is named after Walt Disney who founded it, right? That would be an eponym. So something named after the person who founded it. That's what that is. We have the word anonymous. You should be somewhat familiar with that word. Anonymous means something that is not, you don't give your name when you're doing it, right? The actual literal meaning means not named. A lot of you turn in anonymous papers in your doc folder. You do not tell me who wrote or did the paper, right? It's anonymous. You just aren't sure who it is. We also have the word homonym. Again, this is a word you should be, as 5th graders, pretty familiar with. It's a word that is spelled or pronounced like another word, but it has different meaning. For example, deer and deer. One meaning the animal, one meaning like a term of endearment or something very sweet, right? You use to do a letter, right? So something that has a similar name, but different meaning. We have the word acronym. And again, that one should be pretty familiar. It's a word formed using the first letters in a phrase, right? That you can end up becoming as a name. I'll use an example. The King's Academy, right? The T and the K and Kings, A and Academy. TKA would be an acronym for our school, right? It's another name that you can use for something that just shortens it in a way. We also have the word synonym. You guys should know that. Again, we see that anym meaning, which means same meaning, right? And literal, like the same name or the meaning of it. So for example, happy and excited, sad and morose, any of those things, two words that have a similar meaning is what a synonym is. And then this last word is the word pseudonym. Okay, so the P is silent, so it's pseudonym. And this is a name a writer uses instead of their real name, right? So it's kind of like an alias that they use instead of publishing things in their own name. For example, you have heard of the books Dr. Seuss. That person wrote using a pseudonym, right? So his real actual legal name was Theodore Geisel, but he published all of his works, as Dr. Seuss, right? So that's what the pseudonym is. Okay, so all of those words have something to do with name, okay? So when I look at these words, I kind of put a star beside the ones that I thought would be most helpful, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight. These are words that as a fifth grader, I would expect you to know and understand. So like hint, hint, maybe on your quiz. I would expect you to know and understand antonym, homonym, anonymous, and pseudonym. And as a hint, these two people got really confused on last year on the quiz. So if you are publishing something anonymously, it just means you're not telling your name. A pseudonym means you're using a different name than the one that's on your birth certificate, for example. And then I would really know an acronym and a synonym. Those are the ones that to me make the most sense in fifth grade for you to really understand. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have the root word gen, which means born, family, beginning, something to that effect is what we have. So I'm going to move these out of the way so we can kind of talk about just this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to go through these kind of quickly. Some of these make the most sense to you. You probably know these. We have the word genre, okay? A genre is a category of books or art, right? So this is a genre of comedy or science fiction or fantasy, right? This is what they all kind of have in common. They're all the same family, so to speak, of books, right? That's what a genre is. We have the word regenerate. Again, we see that root word gen. To regenerate means to grow again after being lost, right? So it's kind of like you're born again. So we talked about this when we were in our zoology unit, how there were some animals who, like lizards specifically, who could regenerate certain body parts if they were, attacked by a predator or something. They could grow them again. They could be born again. We have the word gene, which you should all know. I'm talking about in fifth grade genetics, but gene is kind of like a part of a cell that controls the inheritance of the trait, right? So thinking about things that are inherited from your family, things that are within your body that tells your body, what things are inherited or what dominant recessive traits you have. All of that is kind of similar within that family trait. We also have the word genesis. Which really can have two meanings. Genesis means the beginning of something, right? So you could talk about like the genesis of our company was started in my garage when I was putting computer parts together, right? We also know this as the very first book of the Bible, right? The very beginning of everything, right? Is the Genesis. That's why would be my assumption that maybe the first book of the Bible was named that. We have the word, generic. Generic means it's kind of like belonging to a large group of objects. So again, that's similar family idea. I think of this really when you think of like certain products or medicines and stuff you think about as generic, where they belong to a larger group, right? So you might go in and get the Kroger brand, that would be generic, right? All the things that are made by Kroger, not by like Pillsbury or other things, they're all generic. We have generator. A generator is to kind of like produce or begin something, right? So you could have like a random name generator and it would randomly produce or create a name of something, right? Or you think of this, a lot of times you might have heard it, the power goes out, there's a big storm coming and people are worried about getting, a generator, right? They need power. So it could be a mechanical something, but it still helps to begin or create, power or electricity. We have this next word. We have this word, it's called progenitor. It is someone who begins something, right? So again, that beginning. I think of this as something that's like someone who starts or begins, like the progenitor of modern art, right? They're the person who creates and starts this one type of modern art. Again, this would not be something that a fifth grader would like really need to know. So I wouldn't necessarily know that, but just I wanted you to see how it was related to Gen. We have genetic. That one is one everybody should know, right? Considering that's a fifth grade science topic, but it's in or involving genes, right? Thinking about the beginning of a person, how all of that is created. That is what genetic means. We have the word progeny. This is just a person who comes from a particular parent. So again, that family or beginning. And then the last word we have is the word hydrogen. So hydrogen is like the simplest, most common element. It is one of the building blocks of elements. So they use a lot of these to create more things, right? You need hydrogen to create water, and so on and so forth, right? So all of these are words that are meaning to be born or family, beginning. Again, there are a lot of words on here that I wanted you to know so that the more that you are familiar with some of these root words, the easier it's going to be to help you understand. But again, in terms of things that I would expect a fifth grader to know and be familiar with, these would really just be the words that I would spend some time looking at and studying. The other words are just good to know, but these would be ones that I would think would be good to be familiar with. And then our last very short one, we have the word or the root word mort, meaning death. And this one we just have 4 words within it. We have this first word, mortal, which means certain to die, causing death, right? Every human, for example, is mortal, right? They will die at some point. Okay, that's going to happen. You could think about it like a mortal wound, right? In the Civil War, they were in battle and you got a mortal wound, like something that's going to cause you to die, right? So it could have kind of double meanings, but all of it meaning you're not going to live forever, right? You are going to eventually die. You have the word mortician. This is a person whose job is to kind of prepare people who have passed away for funerals, right? So they help to get them prepared for the actual funeral and the burial and all that kind of stuff. So that's a mortician. We have the word immortal, which would be an antonym, right, of mortal. We know that im from one of our previous sorts means not. So immortal means not capable of dying, right? So typically if you've watched a lot of fantasy movies, a lot of times they talk about people being immortal. They're not capable of dying. They live forever, that kind of thing. That would be an immortal creature. And then last, the word mortified. It means like super embarrassed, right? If you were mortified, you were beyond embarrassed, right? So I actually did some digging and looked up the meaning of this word because I was curious why it had this root word meaning death on it. So before this word in the 15 and 1600s used to mean like you were dead to sin or the world, like you had done something that was so awful it was like unforgivable, right? You were mortified that you had created or done this sin, and eventually the word kind of morphed and changed to just mean really kind of embarrassed. So again, the words that I would really kind of concentrate on for this Sort 31 quiz would be these 3 words. And again, I would just be super familiar with the meanings of these root words to help you. That's all for today, 5th grade. Thanks for being great. We'll see you later. Bye.